You're about to enjoy a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the CEO Leading In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of CEO. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. Today, we're here with Debra Kaye, CEO and President of V&A Consulting Engineers. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming and being part of our podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what a normal day looks like for you.
Well, a little bit about myself. I am a registered civil engineer, and my path to this career was not a traditional one, and by any means. And I work in the water and wastewater industry, and I really enjoy the industry that I'm in because at the end of the day, I'm making a difference for public health and for the environment. And most of the work that we do is focused on preserving infrastructure. Everything's falling apart. You know, we have pipes in the ground that have been there for hundreds of years. And so it's very meaningful work that we get to work with municipalities in particular to do what we can to help extend the useful life of their infrastructure. And I like to talk a lot about the industry, the water and wastewater industry, because I think it's an industry that is often overlooked. People don't think about what goes into making sure you turn on your tap in the morning and you always have water. And when you flush your toilet, it has somewhere to go that's safe and doesn't destroy the environment. And there's so many different aspects of the industry that are open to anything you're interested in. From finance to engineering to operations to marketing, all of those things go into making sure that we have, water to drink and the environment's protected when we're taking care of the wastewater. So I don't know what else to say about my typical day. I became the majority owner of my firm in 2019. And I have offices in Oakland, San Diego, Houston, and Florida. And I'm kind of in the process of acquiring another firm in Florida. And when I think about what my role is in my company, it's to make sure that the people that work for me have a good environment to work in, that they're able to provide for their families, that I'm taking very good care of them and making sure that they're able to, be part of society and work in a really great environment.
Well, those are all great goals, of course. and you're right. Most people turn on their water, they flush their toilet. They don't really think about how that actually leaves or gets there. They just literally just know that it's going to happen. And that's because we live in a first world country, right? We're not in a third world country, and we take these things for granted. So I'm glad someone is a good steward of all of that, because we definitely want to have that all continue. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about you as a person outside of your career. Do you have a fun childhood memory that you might be able to share with us today?
Well, I was a bit of a tomboy growing up. I own a Harley. I ride. I learned to ride a dirt bike. My dad taught me in our driveway when I was probably 6 or 7. I was pretty young. And on my bicycle, I wanted to be able to ride wheelies better than any of the boys. So I was always practicing. And there was one incident where having a little bit of a competition. I grew up in a very small town in northern Nevada, so in my mind, the entire city was out watching the competition. And I came down off what I thought was one of the best wheelies, and the front wheel broke off my bike, and I broke my fall with my hands in front of me and broke both my thumbs. And so I spent a period of time, with my thumbs both and split from trying to beat the boys on my bicycle. So I think that's kind of a little bit of a theme, I think, in my life, is that I've always done things that maybe haven't always been traditional for a young woman or for a girl. And
all in.
Definitely
all in. The
Yeah.
fact that your wheel came off, honestly, is incredible to me.
Yes.
But the fact that you broke both of your thumbs and you walked around, I'm assuming, in a sling or something where your thumbs had to be stuck out.
Everything was thumbs up for a long period of time.
That is hilarious. There had to be pictures all over your city about that. Well, back then, I guess there probably weren't cell phones.
Yeah, we're going way back.
Well, it could have been a Polaroid situation, like when I was a kid.
Yes. Or that was Happy Days, the Fonz, right? Thumbs up.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. So, and by the way, you're very girly on the outside for our listeners, so you don't look like you're a tomboy. So I find this to be a very fun story. So, but let's talk about, one word maybe that might describe you as a person best. Do you have one?
Well, I like to think I have two, because I believe I'm very genuine. I've always been very, very straight in the way that I communicate, and with my vision, my goals, working with teams, very, very transparent and very genuine. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And if I can't, if there's something that comes up, I always circle back and communicate why. And the other word is tenacious. It's especially being in the industry that I'm in. It's, things have vastly improved over the years. But when I first got into this industry, I started out in operations, and I was the only female operator in an all-male environment. And I had a supervisor that told me, I was in a union. I worked for a utility, and I had enough seniority to bid on a job working at the water plant. I was a meter reader at the time, so that was a step up. And I finally had enough seniority, and I was awarded the bid, and I went and met with the manager and spent some time at the plant. And I was fascinated. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think this is where our water comes from. And he told me he wanted me to rescind my bid because I was too young, too pretty, and too single to work night shift with his guys, and their wives wouldn't like it. So that was when I first was like, I'm taking this job, and I hope we all can learn from it. But it was a lot of being very tenacious, because it was not the best environment, not the most supportive environment. And I was able to work full-time, and I went back to school and got my engineering degree. So I worked full-time as an operator and went to school full-time and got my engineering degree in not a very supportive work environment. So tenacious is a word that describes me quite well.
That's actually one of my words too. And I find it interesting. I think you're like me in the way that if someone tells you that you're not going to be able to do something, you find a path to make that actually happen.
Oh, yeah. Don't tell me no.
That's right. You tell me no, I'm going to show you yes. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but it will happen.
Yeah.
I love that. So how long have you been in your current career?
I'm going to date myself here. I think I looked at like 37 or 38 years. Wow. Yeah, right out of high school. I mean, I ended up taking a job at a utility because I was fourth generation actually at the utility. My great-grandfather was a founder. My grandfather was a vice president. My dad worked there, and so I took a job in customer service it was Sierra Pacific Power Company in Reno, Nevada. So that was like but the intent was I was just going to work there in the summers and then go to school at that point, I thought I wanted to be an attorney. Wanted to go into politics, believe it or
Oh,
not.
geez.
And once I started, well, back up a little bit, I wanted to be more independent. And so I decided to put school on the back burner because I wanted to be on my own and kind of sow some wild oats when I was younger. And it wasn't until I finally had the opportunity to work at the water plant was when I really was like, okay, who designs this stuff? I'm having to operate it, having to figure out how to make everything work. And so my brain's like, who built this and designed this? And I had a wonderful mentor that worked in the laboratory at the time that was, you need to go get your engineering degree. And
Wow.
so,
Nice.
yeah.
That's really interesting. So, so you've been doing this your whole
Yes.
adult life. So how do you measure success? Because I think for you, it probably is very different than most people measure success. Because for you, at the end of the day, I would think it would be how are things going, and are you able to keep things together and hold them together? And let me ask another part of that too, and that is, what type of projects are you doing to go into older infrastructure to fix them? And what does that success look like?
So when it comes to, I think the way that I've measured my personal success, I was very lucky. My mother, when my brother and I were both in school, she decided that she wanted to go and have a career, and so she had a amazing career in banking, and so I got to see firsthand how she balanced that, because I know that I always came first. It's like the family was the most important, but she also had a very rewarding career. And so I was able to see that growing up. And so success for me from a personal level is maintaining that balance. And I have a 24-year-old daughter that she's tenacious times 10. There's a lot of things about her that, I feel that I've given a lot of opportunities for her to see how to be strong and, how to stand your ground and ask for what you deserve. And so being able that balance of having the really strong home life, I have a very supportive husband, close to my family, and then also having a rewarding career. So the fact that I can manage both of those, and that's been very important. And then when it comes to the business side of things, to me, the measure of success is when we have clients that come back to us. You can, put in a competitive proposal, win the work, do the work, but establishing that relationship with an agency and having them come back to us, time and time again when they have a problem. It's like, who can help us with this? And they call us. To me, that's a real measure of success, is that our clients trust us and come to us when they need help. And when it comes to the types of projects that we do, sample one, so we'll do work at a wastewater treatment plant where it's a very, very aggressive environment, very corrosive environment. And so they will schedule certain sections of the plant to be taken out of service. And then we come out and we do confined space entries. We actually test the reinforcing steel in structures. We test the concrete. So we really look at the materials of construction and determine what can we do to make this last longer, because you're not nowadays building a brand new pipeline, trying to replace a pipeline that runs through the middle of downtown, San Diego. That's a big lift. It's very disruptive. So trying to find ways to extend the life of assets with either coatings or, improvements in place to kind of mitigate the disruption to the community and to the agency. And the reality is all of the money, I get paid by taxpayers and ratepayers. And so I always look at it as it's full circle for me too, because I'm a taxpayer, I'm a ratepayer, and I want to make sure that the money I'm giving to my agency is being used effectively and and they're doing everything they can to make sure that my water always turns on and my toilet always flushes. And so it's that kind of that full circle thinking of making sure that we're doing the best thing for the client, and which is ultimately the community.
So you talked a little bit about balance. I find that very difficult at times, especially when the kids were little. Mine are older too, in their 20s. So how do you do all of that? Like what are your strategies? Anything that you want to share with our listeners today?
I think the one thing for me that throughout my career has been very important is I have this saying, I have control over nothing in my life except for how I choose to respond to it. And I do have control issues. I'm the first one to admit, if I had my way, things would always go my way. But I do always have control over what I eat and whether or not I exercise. So those things are very, very important to me, is I make sure, that I'm eating healthy. If I get super stressed, I know it's like, okay, as long as my diet's good, I'm going to be able to handle it well. And the working out, I also did competitive bodybuilding back in the day, so I'm kind of a gym rat. And so that if I can get in, if I'm having a stressful day, I need to go to the gym, and that helps a lot.
That's great. So, as a female leader, what is one of the most significant barriers that you've encountered?
I would say that one of the bigger barriers for me was on the operations side of the house, especially, I'm a licensed water treatment plant operator and a licensed water distribution operator. And so having credibility in that environment can be a challenge. It's like I worked as an operator, and then I came back and I ended up being the supervisor of all of these people that I worked with. And several of them were, I actually had two guys that worked for me that had worked with my dad, and I ended up being their boss. And so it was always a balance of having a good relationship, but also being able to stand my ground and say, this is the way we're doing it, and having that level of trust and respect come back from the men on my team.
Did you find resistance in that?
Yes.
Because you're a woman?
Oh, yes. It's. I would say that in the industry as a whole, it is greatly improved. But women in operations are there's just not very many of them. I mean, it's physical work. It's you're working shift work, so there's a lot of challenges around it. But there are, Cuyamaca College here in San Diego has a water program, and it's pretty exciting to see how many women are, now looking at that as a career. And so a lot of it, I would say it's much better now. But back in, the 90s, I'm dating myself here, that was the difficult thing, is being taken seriously. Mm-hmm. And I think the first time I presented, my mentor asked me, so I was working as a water plant operator at a brand new plant, and the night that we put water in the system, so it's kind of a big deal. You're actually delivering water to the customer, brand new facility. And it was not super smooth from an operator's perspective because there was a real gap between engineering and operations. And so my mentor's like, oh, you should write something up. So I'd do anything. I'm like, okay. So I wrote something up. He submitted it as an abstract, and it got accepted at a conference. And I was going to school full-time, working full-time, and then I had to do a presentation. And all I had to wear were jeans, boots, and flannels, because that's what I wore to work, and clothes for clubbing, which are not, I was a 20-something-year-old young woman, and it's like, I don't think I could wear this to a conference. I had to borrow a suit from my mother. And I had a lot of people, that was the first time being outside of just my little circle, being exposed to other people in the industry and being asked questions like, well, who are you here with? Like, who's your husband? Who's your boyfriend? Why are you here? So just at the beginning, it was, having people be open to even listening to what I had to say and not just discount it because of the way I looked.
So share with us some lessons, because I think that probably led to some lessons that you've learned. But some lessons that you'd like to share with other women in all of this.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, and this is something I probably learned, I think maybe becoming a mother helped with this. Coming from operations, I had a pretty big chip on my shoulder because I was always fighting. And so, I had to clean up my language. I could not be, I did not need to swear to get my point across. So that was, kind of coming out of that environment. But one of the things I really learned is I think I mentioned this before, I have no control over what motivates people, how people are going to react to certain situations. All I have control over is how I choose to respond. And also how I choose to engage people, right? And, I, in my company, we do, DISC profile training. It's like really understanding what motivates others and what makes them excited to do something and finding a way to tap into that so that they're feeling rewarded in what they're doing, but it's also helping you accomplish your goals. So really understanding that I only have control over how I'm going to react to a situation, and that's it.
And knowing people and talking to a lot of different people, I think helps you in that as you're kind of understanding different motivations and really how you respond to it, right? I mean, a lot of it really is just life experience.
Yes.
As you go through and you go, oh, that didn't work out very well.
Yes.
Or, oh, that was great. That really went well. I mean, if you look at all of the different things that come in our life, I think there's a lesson in everything that happens.
Yes.
There's always.
And I think, too, one of the big things for me was being involved in a volunteer capacity. So, I was a foreman. I was a working foreman at work. So people had to do what I told them to do, even if they didn't want to, because I was their boss. I got involved with the American Water Works Association, which is a nonprofit trade organization. And I got involved with organizing workshops. And so you can't just boss people around because they're volunteering as well. And so that was a real lesson for me, is how to be more collaborative and not so much of a dictator, I guess, is versus if you're the boss and your word's the word, then, it's different to be more collaborative, and working in a volunteer organization really helped me with that skill.
Well, you definitely strike me as someone that would roll up their sleeves and work right alongside every person around you that you want to do something. So I think for you, probably leading by example is part of that.
Yes, this is true. I have a story it was at our treatment plant, and we had one of our sedimentation basins taken out of service, and we needed to get in the bottom of this basin, and it's a fire hose, and it doesn't smell good. And this is what we had to do, because we had a piece of equipment that had gone down. And on the top of the basin, I had my maintenance guys arguing with the operations guys about whose job it was to get in and do it. And so,
well, someone's got to get it done.
I went in and did it. I was like, are you guys kidding me? Let me go get my waiters. I'll do it. And then all of them got in the basin with me.
That's right.
Yeah. So
you can feel bad over it.
It's like, I can put on my waiters and do it by myself, and you guys can sit up here and talk about it.
Exactly. I love that. So what are you most passionate about in your journey and proud of?
I'm very passionate about the industry and getting youth, just young people in general. Women, I'm always kind of drawn towards women, especially women engineers, because there's some pretty sad statistics about what happens to women and how many of them leave the engineering field. And a lot of it's because if you're working in a consulting environment, and you decide to take time off to have kids, it's like you get left behind. It's like your male peers are going to continue to promote, but you kind of get left behind. And I've made it a strategic goal in my firm that does not happen. And so, and it's for both men and women. And so I had a guy that works for me that took a paternity leave. It's like, all right, we are making sure that when he comes back, he's not missing a step. And the same thing for the women that work for me, to the point where it's like I have somebody out on leave and I'm going to be posting a position. Mm-hmm. I'm not posting it until they're back from leave so that they have an opportunity.
Well, and, I think mentoring plays a part in all of that, too. I love your philosophy. I really think it is a big win. Do you ever do any mentoring specifically in the industry, even outside of your company, or no?
I have in the past. I'm still kind of finding my way in San Diego. I've been involved in several, or I was involved with a group out in the Coachella Valley where I spent some time with girls that were in high school. And they would come to work with me, and it was great. I was at a conference before COVID, and one of these young women, I had a booth. She came up to me to let me know that she actually had taken a job as an engineer at a water district, and it was because of the time that she had spent with me. So I thought that to me was that was amazing. It's like that's very, very cool, and I would like to find something like that in San Diego. I've kind of reached out to different organizations to see what the opportunities were. When I was in Nevada, I volunteered. I was a CASA, court-appointed special advocate for kids. And that wasn't really necessarily around, the professional development, but my husband's retired law enforcement and getting to see on ride-alongs with him, these kids that were just in these horrible situations. And, I'm like, I want to do something to help them. And so I'm passionate about, young people and opportunities and opening their eyes. And I think one of the things about the water industry is you don't have to be an engineer. I think there's a lot of pressure on young kids to get a college degree. Mm-hmm. And I took a cut in pay to be an engineer. I was in operations, and between shift differentials and overtime, I was a foreman. I took a cut in pay to go be an engineer. It ends up, working out in the long run, but there is a lot of opportunity to make really good money, working for a water or wastewater agency that's just specialized training, and you don't have to have a college degree, so you don't have that debt either.
Well, and that's really important to know, too, because I think a lot of, young people, not specifically women, but just young people don't realize the opportunities. And water is a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. If you look around the world, not every country really focuses on it. And, here in the United States, and I think, specifically even in California, we really do. We have a lot of outside circumstances that affect us. Specifically in San Diego, we have Mexico, and it's very obvious what clean water does for our lives. It improves everything, but when you don't have it, and then how that affects you, because if you look at what happens with the Tijuana River Valley, mm-hmm. It's a big deal. And I think there's becoming more focus on what that actually means. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that as far as, kind of like what's going to happen in the future with water?
Well, I always say water reuse is the big opportunity, right? There's no new water on Earth. I always tell people this. It's a closed system. So my water bottle, this is no new water that's in here. It's like I kind of joke around. It's like we're all drinking Cleopatra's pee, but it's a closed system. And the advances in technology that are happening and what we can do as an industry in treating wastewater to the higher standards than anything you can get in a natural stream bed is amazing. And that's where there's a lot of opportunity, is to really be able to take, but there's costs associated with that too. And so it's also that balancing act that these agencies have to okay, it's going to, the cost of treating that water and delivering that water, and how do people pay for it? There is no one simple answer. It's a mix of everything to make sure that, especially here in the US, where we're protecting the environment and making sure that we have a sustainable supply of water.
Well, and like you said, we have a lot of it, but how do we figure out how to actually utilize it? Because it just, it keeps it's still moving around. And, I don't know why specifically, and maybe you even have some insight on this, why we're not doing more desalination. Why is that? Is it expensive?
It's expensive.
Yeah.
It's very, so this is the other, there's always unintended consequences from any action that we take. So, when you're looking at the energy consumption, I think the water industry is one of the largest consumers of energy in the world. I mean, you're using energy to pump, treat. So it's like you're balancing all of these things. So there's the cost associated. And then, in California, we have the Coastal Commission. It's like there's regulatory hurdles that need to be, that you have to deal with. But I mean, that's a sustainable supply of water. But It's just a matter of, really, I think, embracing technology to make things more efficient and affordable. So that's the other piece of it is, in my industry, it's like, don't want to embrace anything new because you're protecting public health. So you're not going to take any risks. But there is a balance between, okay, why could we be doing this better and being more open to different technologies? And the industry does recognize that, but we're not early adopters because the risk is huge. If you adopt something new that hasn't really been vetted, I mean, you could do real damage to the environment and to public health. So there's reasons for that caution, but that's what's going to help us bring down the costs.
Definitely. Well, and with every technology, it does move pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this time next year, we may have something completely brand new that actually is more efficient and can really get us to where we need to go. Okay, so Debra, you walk into a room, you've got all these young women, and they're kind of saying, well, maybe I would want to become a leader in any industry. What would be the advice that you would give them of things that you've learned and to that next generation of female leaders?
One thing I would say is do your research and know what you're worth and ask for what you're worth. I think that's something that I've kind of seen women in general, and I in particular had done this as well. Just kind of accepting what's been given to you because, I'm a woman in this industry and I'm getting this opportunity. But it needs to be, do your research and make sure you're asking for what you're worth. And I have this conversation with my daughter all the time. Demand more, ask for more. And she's like, but I don't want to, offend anybody. And I'm like, it's not offensive. You are worth this. You need to ask for what you're worth.
Well, and other people are asking.
Exactly.
You don't want to be the one that's too afraid to ask and everyone else is, and then you lose out.
Yes. And I think the thing too is if you're told no, don't think of it as the end of the world. I've been told no many times in my life and I haven't let it cripple me. It's like, okay, well, no, that way. But maybe yes, this way. It's being open to looking at different ways to get things done. But it really is using your voice and asking for what you're worth.
Very good advice. So what's next in your journey?
Well,
you mentioned you're acquiring another company.
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm. So this is we did an internal ownership transition where I bought out the founder of VNA, Jose Villalobos. But that was a little bit different because, I was running the company. But this is, the first, totally independent acquisition. And it's kind of interesting everybody that's involved in it is a woman, which is really not normal for my industry to be. My attorney's a woman, my accountant, and I'm not doing this on purpose. It's like somebody's kind of like, is this all you pick? And it's like, no, I just picked the best people, and this just happens to be the team. So it's been frustrating. But it's also, I'm learning a lot. I think that's the one thing for me. If I'm not learning, I feel like I'm stagnant. And so I'm always looking for ways to learn more and expand my knowledge base. So the acquisition, and that's a big thing in the future. And my plans for when I retire is I want to sell the company to the employee. So I want to form an employee stock ownership program. And so putting those things in place, because that takes some time.
Sure.
And so making sure that my team, because my success is not mine, it's my team is what, is what's responsible for what we're accomplishing at the end of the day. It's not me, it's the team. And so I want to take care of the team.
That's great. Well, I'm so excited to watch you and see what you do next. I actually think you're probably going to acquire another company or two.
Yeah, probably.
It's so wonderful to talk to you. And thank you so much for sharing today. Really, really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with CEO host Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.